Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
What does a healthy, balanced lifestyle consist of? How should you eat? What exercise should you be doing? How many hours of sleep do we really need? Does too much water flush away all your vitamins? Should it be high carb, low fat, or high fat, low carb? The more research you do, the more confusing it gets, because there is so much information out there, and there are so many conflicting opinions. So how are we supposed to know? Stick around to explore the different approaches to health with us, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and let's try to figure out together what the heck being healthy really means. I am your host, Hazel Priscilla, and this is your weekly dose of Feed Me Honesty. Hello, truth seekers, and welcome to a brand new week of discussion. Today we will be taking on a sensitive but unavoidable topic. How many of us can say that we don't at least know of one person in our immediate circle of influence whose life has not directly or indirectly been affected by cancer? A little over a year ago, I was one of the fortunate people who didn't have any form of cancer in my family or social circles. Today, I'm a 26-year-old who lost her father to cancer a year ago and also have a close friend who lost his mother just the other day. As the story suggests, cancer doesn't exactly come with a warning, and when it shows up unannounced, it shows up like a tornado. It moves fast and it turns your whole life upside down. But as destructive as this disease is, I can't help but believe that there is an upside to every down. Sometimes you just have to look a little harder. Although I'm not encouraging living in denial at all or trying to sugarcoat the situation, I decided to call this episode The Can in Cancer because there are so many stories of hope and survival out there as well, and it feels just a little bit better to think that we are not completely helpless and that there are things that we can do after all to make the best of a bad situation. Megan, this makes me think of what you said to me over the phone the other day. Even if you put icing on shit, it is still shit. And I think you earned the right to say that because there is no denying that you have been through a lot. Before we move on, let me quickly introduce our guest properly. I feel very fortunate to have Megan Randall with me in studio today. Megan is a cancer survivor herself, and she knows firsthand what this journey, this roller coaster is like. Megan, thank you for being here today and for being so brave to share your story with us.
Hi, Hazel. Just to say, if you're going to remember me for having said anything, I think I'd rather it be that life's short and choose where you spend your energy.
Okay, I think that's better. Before we get to any other questions, can you please tell us in short what type of cancer you had, when you were diagnosed, and what your current status is?
I was diagnosed the day after Christmas in 2014. I had a particularly rare type of colorectal cancer called anal cancer. It's what Farrah Fawcett died from in 2009.
Can you still remember what the first thoughts were that came to your mind after the bomb was dropped on you? Or is it all just one big blur at the moment? I mean, it was the day after Christmas, so you were probably on a high and then brought down really quickly.
Well, I'd been for the colonoscopy about 10 days before that.
Okay.
And the doctor had already said to me, look, he doesn't like what he'd found. And so actually it was those 10 days waiting.
I can imagine that was the worst.
Yeah, so it was really hard because it wasn't something that I could tell anybody because I didn't know what it was yet.
You don't want to scare them.
Yeah, and I didn't know what it was. So that was probably the hardest thing. Yeah, my immediate thought when I was told by the doctor, I kind of just thought, okay, well, if this is what life is giving me to deal with, this is it.
I have to deal with.
Yep.
So, what a great mindset to have. I don't think a lot of people has that initial thought.
I have to say, though, waking up every morning and suddenly remembering that you've actually been given a cancer diagnosis was really, really
dealing
difficult.
With it all over again every single day almost. Megan, I know that you were quite determined to go the natural route as far as possible. Please tell us why you made this decision and what different natural remedies you tried out. Also, please explain to us what your experience of each of them were.
So basically what I can say is that I was determined to be a part of the process. I wanted to be making knowledgeable choices, and informed choices. So I hit the internet, I hit every book I could find in cancer. And really, there's a lot of information out there, which is sometimes contradictory and very often fear-inducing.
Yes.
So I was really, actually, to be quite honest, scared of the traditional methodologies and inspired by a lot of what the alternates had to offer. So I tried everything. I tried everything from vitamin C IVs to ozone to cannabis oil. I did a huge adjustment to my nutrition and way of eating. I tried things like photodynamic therapy. I can actually list you about 100 million things that I tried.
Yeah.
Every time I read something new, I would try and incorporate that into my lifestyle, into my life. I spent 18 months trying all different things. Yes, and it was a huge risk. You have the doctors or the oncologists on the one side sort of saying to you, it's got to happen, and it's got to happen now, and you've got to deal with it right now. And then you've got the internet saying to you, beware the traditionals. Yeah. It's a very, very stressful, very lonely time.
I can only imagine. On top of, just having the bomb dropped on you that you have cancer, now having to deal with this, like, how am I going to find out, what am I going to do, and different opinions. Just when you thought, okay, I know I'm going to do this, then you hear someone else or you read something else and then you're confused all over again.
Totally. I think it would almost have been easier if I was the type of person to just take what the doctor said and go with that.
Yeah.
But I'm just not that kind of person. And I actually had a friend who was diagnosed with breast cancer 5 months after me. She went the absolutely traditional route, and she passed away a year later. And
so there's no saying, there's no right or wrong.
There really is not. If there's one thing I learned, everybody is individual, and you really have to take responsibility for your own health.
Yes.
And your own role in that. And everybody's journey is unique. I don't think either of us did anything particularly right or wrong. I'm really not sure or if we have any control over anything in our lives. That's what I've kind of learned from this process.
So you said that you tried everything, and aside from the more natural stuff, you also did more traditional treatments. Can you tell us what you did and how that experience was like?
So in July 2016, 18 months after my initial diagnosis, I was exhausted. I was in extreme pain, and I really had nobody to turn to other than the oncologists. I chose to do the protocol, which is called the Negra regime. It involves 6 weeks of radiation, 2 weeks of full-time chemo in hospital, on a drip 24/7. Side effects were extreme. I was burnt. My pelvic area was absolutely
on
raw.
Fire.
On fire. I had chunks of skin falling off me. It was really, really difficult.
So were you unable to walk at that stage? Could you lie down? What did you have to be in bed or?
Whilst I was in the hospital for the 2 weeks of chemo, they basically keep you in bed other than when they're sending you down to radiation. I could walk, it was uncomfortable. Going to the bathroom was extremely uncomfortable. I was lucky by all accounts. The oncologists absolutely attributed the fact that my cancer hadn't metastasized and the fact that I had such minimal side effects to the fact that I had done the nutritional stuff and the alternate stuff.
Yes, so that helped.
Well, even the oncologist said to me that can be the only explanation for why I had lesser side effects.
Because you'd say you didn't lose any hair and you weren't nauseous.
I didn't have much nausea and I wasn't vomiting.
So it was mostly just the pain.
Absolutely, and the skin burns.
But you did say that after the radiation you did feel that the pain went away a bit, or was it
after about
less?
The first 10 days of radiation, undoubtedly the pain started to decrease, which was also contrary to what the oncologists had warned me. They'd warned me that I'd possibly at the end of the 6 weeks require a hospital stay of about a week for pain management. So even they were surprised by the fact that I actually took no painkillers throughout the entire process.
That is wonderful. Because that also has side effects again that you would have had to deal with. So.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest side effects from the painkillers is that it often slows your gut down.
Yes.
And slowing one's gut down
Yeah, that makes just makes sense that that's not a good thing to happen to you. You said that you did a lot of research, so what can you tell us about your food choices and how they relate to cancer, both positively and negatively? What can we eat that's good for us and what shouldn't we eat, that kind of thing?
So I made the choice to not eat any meat, no wheat or gluten, no sugar, no dairy.
It's a lot of things to cut out.
And no alcohol. Okay, for me the alcohol was probably the easiest one because I don't drink much alcohol. It was, fairly difficult.
But at that point, I suppose you're also so desperate that you're like, I'm doing this for myself, so, I'm doing it for a reason.
Absolutely, there's a huge motivation.
To lose weight or something.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, I absolutely lost weight. I was about 47 kgs.
Oh my goodness.
Whether that was the cancer as a side effect of the cancer, or whether that was due to the diet. But the point was, I absolutely lost weight.
How were your energy levels on
fine,
that diet?
Great, actually.
Oh,
they really were. I think the biggest difficulty was the number of contradictions and disagreements that would come up. I'd be reading an article and it's like, oh, you've got to do garlic, and then 2 weeks later you read something and don't you dare do garlic. That was the hard part. That really, really made things difficult.
And you don't know what to trust because, how do you know which source is the right one and which is the wrong one? Megan, as we all know, cancer is not only a journey that the patient is on, but it's a road that all the people who love you walk with you. How did the news affect your family and friends, and how did they deal with the reality?
I have to say, I think everybody was just absolutely shocked. My daughter was 4 years old at the time. For me, I think that was the most difficult thing about the diagnosis.
Trying to save her from this and trying to be there for her when you aren't,
and even
your best.
Considering the fact that I may not be there for or be a part of her growing up. That was really, really the most difficult thing that I had to contemplate.
I can imagine. But they were really supportive, I suppose?
Look, I have to be honest, you sure found out who your friends are.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Everybody's reaction was different. I think one of the things that I'm most grateful for was that my direct family was incredibly supportive of me choosing to go about the process
the way I wanted to.
And so they were great. They really were. It must have been very difficult for them.
Definitely. To end off on the most positive note we possibly can you share one or even a few valuable life lessons that being diagnosed with cancer has taught you?
Undoubtedly, I learned to let go. I learned to trust in something greater than me, whatever that may be. I certainly did. I learned to listen to my body.
And I think it's sad that it takes something like that to get us to listen to our bodies. When you're healthy, you don't listen to your body, or you don't trust, or you don't let go. It's sad that it sometimes need extreme measures to just start listening to yourself.
I think we just take our bodies for granted.
Yes.
Especially when we're young.
Yeah. So what I can also say, what I learned from my father's experience is also it's restored my faith in humanity. So we live in a small town, and I have to say the amount of people who just rocked up at our house, left food in front of our door, not even saying who it was who left it there, or people who, words of encouragement, or came to visit, or anything. Like, people came from everywhere, like people we didn't see for years were there. And then something else I also learned was to be grateful for my own health. We're never grateful for our health until we're unhealthy or we get sick. So when you're healthy, I think it's really important to be grateful for your health and everyone around you. At a stage, I found myself thinking, okay, my father is so sick, but my mother is healthy, my brother is healthy, my grandmother is healthy, I'm healthy. So to just, get things in perspective and to not only focus on the disease, but to also focus on the health around it. And then not to live for one day, to live for right now. I think my father was 55. He also had so many plans and things he was still going to do, and he never did it because he always thought he had so much time. So nowadays, I try to focus on doing the things I want to do right now and not leave them for one day. And lastly, to make time for your family. You don't know when you're going to see them again, if they're going to be around forever, and you're always caught in this work cycle. I don't have time, I have to do this, I have to do that. But make time for your family, because It's precious and you might not always have them. Okay, do you want to say anything else?
I really couldn't agree with you more. That's absolutely was my experience. I think they're very wise words.
And I think you also wanted to mention a few books and sources that you can share with us that really helped you along the way.
Absolutely. For me, these books found the balance between the alternate approaches and traditional approaches. They really weren't fear-based. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yes.
So much of it, both traditional and alternate options, are fear-driven. And these books found a real clear balance between the both without inducing fear. The one is a book called How to Be an Exceptional Patient by Dr. Bernie Siegel. He himself was a surgeon and worked with cancer patients. The other is a book called The Cancer Whisperer, written by a woman, Sophie Savage, who herself has stage 4 lung brain cancer. And another is a woman called Anita Mojani, and she wrote a book called Dying to Be Me.
Okay, so be sure to check out those sources if you are interested. I regret that this is all we have time for today, but this is definitely not the last time you'll be hearing from Megan or the last time we'll be sharing valuable information regarding this topic. Megan, I cannot thank you enough for your time and for the inspiration that you are to all of us. We only wish you and your loved ones joy and vitality on your journey forward.
Thanks very much for the opportunity to share my journey, and it's been great spending time with you. Thanks, Hazel.
As always, I would also like to thank our listeners for tuning in to share in our discussion. Be sure to do the same next week when we will be talking to dietitian Petra Lowe about diabetes. Have a balanced week and remember to be kind to yourself so that you can be kind to others too. Feed Me Honesty is a South African lifestyle podcast hosted by Hazel Priscilla and produced with the generous assistance of Blended Podcasts, brought to you by Blended Audio.